Hey everyone, welcome to How We Innovate. My name is Brent Siebold. I am the Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, and I'm super excited. We've got an amazing show teed up for today, so thanks for joining. First and foremost, I've got my dear friend, my colleague, we've been working together for years. Dr. Chad Kennedy is here representing our Technological Entrepreneurship and Management program and our Management of Technology master's degree here at the Polytechnic campus at Arizona State University. So Chad, welcome. So glad to have you. Tell the audience, I think this is the first time that you're actually on the podcast / YouTube channel. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the crowd, and we'll get going.
Well, Brent, great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my name is Professor Chad Kennedy. As Brent said, I'm actually the chair of the Management of Technology program in the Technology Entrepreneurship program here on the Polytechnic campus. We actually serve classes here and on the Tempe campus. We're going back and forth all the time. My background is engineering to begin with, so I started in mechanical engineering. Then when I went to Silicon Valley, really got involved with electrical engineering and automation and those types of things. Ended up going to graduate school in biomedical engineering because I wanted to be an astronaut, but didn't turn out that way. So I worked at NASA a little bit before that, but applied a couple times, but I'm still here on Earth, so obviously I didn't make it there. But
you do great work down on the ground. So.
There we go. Involved in both businesses and also some startups. Worked on restorative biosciences, which was a biotech startup back in the day. Then also involved in a med tech startup more recently, and mostly involved now with the Technology Entrepreneurship Management program. Loving the teaching aspect and getting students and other engineers and people motivated and learning techniques on how to build something for themselves. That's kind of primarily what I get to do now.
I love it. We're so lucky to have you involved with all of our students at ASU, and today is a special time for both of us because we are welcomed on the show by one of our former standout students, now an ASU alum. Jordan Fourcher is here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, hold your applause, because he's going to blow you away with his journey that he's been on. Chad, we got a glimpse of this guy early on in his career as an undergraduate student.
I think the first time I met him was sophomore year, probably.
I think so,
in the creativity class. And
oh my gosh.
He was already pitching stuff even back then, the first class. I never forget that.
Yeah, so we're excited to hear Jordan's full story. I know you and I are excited to get caught up on some of the details, especially over the last few months since you've fully departed the ASU ecosystem. But Jordan, welcome.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, please actually just start as far back as you'd like to. Tell us how you got into the world of technology entrepreneurship, how you got interested, and then we're certainly, I know our audience is really excited to hear what you did while you're at ASU and how you've parlayed that into your career as an entrepreneur, which is happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone asks, it's my dad's fault. So in my house growing up, my dad would, in the cabinets in the hallway, would have bins full of electronic parts, wires, magnets, pieces of old computers, batteries, whatever. And instead of being like, no, don't touch that, he was like, well, I don't want to buy you Legos. Like, so he just kind of let me play around with those. You know, sometimes he'd sit me down and show me how to make an electromagnet or whatever, right? You know, cool stuff like that. And that ability to tinker at a young age, I think, was really pivotal.
Wow.
You know, I ended up getting like those little snap circuit kits and all those other things, and that was cool too. I learned all those, like, oh, it's cool, you can make stuff. That in combination with Wallace and Gromit being one of my favorite shows growing up.
Did you ever watch this
movies
show?
Growing up.
I've heard of it.
I think I saw it every now and then with
the
my
claymation
kids.
dog and Bullfish guy.
Yeah.
He's an inventor, so I was like, okay, this is it. Okay. So since a young age, I wanted to be an inventor, and so every chance I got to make something, I would take it. Like when I was 15 or 16, me and my friend and I, we started a 360 YouTube channel, which as of right now, I think was the first ever tech review channel that was 360 content. So I had a 360 camera. I learned 360 editing, and I lay claim to the first ever 360-degree macaroon review video.
Macaroon.
Yes, and some other wild stuff. And then from there, I went through high school, and high school wasn't super eventful. But when I went to college, when I was touring the campuses, I toured a bunch of different universities. I toured, ones in California because that's originally where I'm from, and then I went to ASU, and it was markedly different. It was everything that I wanted, right from the start. Because for me, it's not just about the place, because UC Santa Barbara, they got a beach you
nice.
just walk onto, but it's about the people, right? It's about the people, and just between going to the bookstore and seeing the books they had on the shelves, and walking around campus, I could see that ASU was far more focused on education than the other universities.
Wow, that makes me feel very proud to hear that. We get
a
knocked
beach
on.
for ASU. That's pretty impressive.
That's great.
Not only that, but the Polytechnic campus was also appealing to me because I went to a high school that wasn't huge, but it wasn't like small either. It was kind of mid-sized. And I liked having smaller classes. I didn't want to have a giant lecture hall full of people because I have the ADHD, so I get distracted occasionally, and I wanted a smaller class that was more tight knit, and Poly offered that. So I went to the Poly campus, and I saw the majors here. I was like, okay, something business related. I'm not doing some art stuff. I want something practical. And then I determined, I saw technological entrepreneurship and management, and I'm like, bingo, Mom, I'm going to ASU. So that was the winning moment right there. That in common, and the fact that it was Poly exclusive was not a problem for me. I'm like, well, I want to be here anyways. Like, I don't want to go to Tempe. So I came here. I was also in Barrett, so that was good too. And right from the start, just the classes, the way TEM is basically set up, I've had to describe it to someone who's not in the program, is every semester, especially once you get to higher level, every semester you are starting a new startup from a different perspective. That's what it is every semester. So you have a project for the class, and it's basically a startup. And let's say you're in a TEM marketing class. You kind of like hold the gravy on everything except for the marketing. So you assume that you have a product, and you assume that you have the financials, and you assume that you have the funding, right? Those are all given hypotheticals, but then you focus on how do you market it as if you were a startup. But then you might have another class that focuses on the financials, right? An accounting class, right? And sometimes what you can do is you can actually combine the projects in each class into one mega project. So you got a teams working on everything and all the things. So that's what my first company actually was. It was a project. It was a part of a class. It was Dr. Cho's class. I don't remember what the name of the class was, but it was Dr. Cho's class. And basically, we were coming up with ideas and startups and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I got an issue, which is that my phone just overheats a lot. As many Arizonans know, that's an issue. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take my tinkering background, I'm going to take my knowledge of electronics. And honestly, my obsession with consumer electronics. I love consumer electronics. I've been going to CES since I was 18 years old. Like I love consumer electronics. Yeah, I'm going again very soon.
In Vegas, right?
Yeah, in Vegas. I was just in Vegas before for another show. But I decided to make, like, my first prototype was a phone case that had, a battery and a thermoelectric plate and a fan, which is, that's pretty basic. Like, no one's made that specifically. No one's made that specifically, but there are versions of that type of thing out there, so it's doable.
Did that prototype fit in your pocket?
Yes, it would.
Oh, wow.
It would.
It's impressive.
I didn't end up making it, but I from what I know now, definitely, absolutely, it would have. And of course, part of entrepreneurship is not just sticking with an idea all the way through and not making changes. You have to pivot. You always have to pivot. If you get too attached to your idea like it's your baby, it'll die. You will actually suffocate it. You need to let it change and grow and metamorphosize into what it really needs to be. And that's how I went from that product, the phone case, to what I have today, which is self-cooling technologies that don't even require electricity. Right?
So can I ask you a question in that regard? So I think this is important for people to hear is transitioning that technology. And what were the things that you discovered, and who did you discover them from to make those transitions, to realize this is close, but this isn't it?
Yes. So that's perfect, actually. So when I wanted to take this a little bit further, I applied to Venture Devils, which was great. I pitched 3 times and won twice, and it was fundamental to actually the success of this entire thing.
Because you won funding.
I won funding.
Oh, yeah.
I won $30,000. So $15,000 once, $15,000
Wow.
the other time. The first time I pitched for like $5,000, I got $15,000. The second time I
Wow.
pitched for $30,000, I got $15,000. So it's like, you know, okay, they give me the same thing twice. But it was fine, and it was very helpful. And I was able to run R&D on 2 different companies technically with $30,000. Hardware R&D, as many people know, is very expensive. So I pride myself on not spending all my money. And so the product went from that to a wireless charger because there was some energy constraints, and I thought, okay, well, people charge their phones and they overheat when they charge all the time. I hear it all the time from people. So why not just build this cooling system into a wireless charger? And then I took it up a notch. I'm like, okay, how do you have sustained thermoelectric plate capabilities beyond an hour, right? Because thermoelectric plates and their heat sinks respectively will saturate, meaning that they can't remove any more heat out of the system, and a fan won't cut it. So I actually devised the world's smallest water cooling system. I think. We're going to find out. I haven't found one smaller yet, but at the time, I'm pretty sure it was. It's this big, and it was all off-the-shelf parts, and it was quite small. It was incredible, and it could do sustained freezing. It could freeze this water bottle in minutes and keep it frozen for hours and hours and hours and hours, just because of the nature of radiators and water cooling systems.
Right.
Could use this in my man cave.
You could. And then, so from there, but to get to that micro water cooling system, I had to go, how do I get from the phone case to the micro water cooling system? So there were a lot of pivots in between there. Right. And actually an ASU grad, an ASU alumni, Jake Slatnick of AeroPower, he was one of my mentors who helped me through that because he was working on wireless charging technology. So when I went from I wanted to keep the cooling but also do the wireless charging, I had a bunch of different prototypes. And one of them kind of relied on me breaking a rule of physics, a rule of thermodynamics. And I was hoping maybe I could twist something. No, you can't. You can't. It doesn't work.
Physics has a hard stop.
So it was a hard stop, and I went to him with my prototype, and I'm like, hey, I need some help on this. Like, how do I cool down the phone with the thermoelectric plate while also not conducting electricity through the thermoelectric plate through the wireless charging coil, which would heat it up through induction. How do I do it? And he's like, you can't. I'm like, dang it. That was my whole thing. But then he kind of like nudged me along. He's like, well, thermoelectric plates are really powerful. Maybe you can just cool down the whole unit with that. And I'm like, you know what? It's not a bad idea. So then instead of having it so it was thermoelectric plate and then wireless charger underneath so you could directly cool the phone, I flipped it around. I was like, okay, the wireless charger is made out of copper. Copper is thermally conductive, very thermally conductive. And if I can reduce the amount of interface layer between that coil and the phone, then that'll just work as my interface, and I cool down the copper coil. So then I made that. And that's how I got to the wireless charger in the water cooling system and all that. Now, the reason why that's not out on the shelves today is because I completed that in early 2021. And to this day, the supply chain is not stable enough for me to do that because it had quite literally too many moving parts. So I shelved it. So
But you still have it.
I still have the prototype sitting, and it works. It works. It's just for me to go to market with that specific product without having existing, manufacturing anything, or not having my own factory, or not having a ton of money to put the capital investments in the tooling, it would have been just such a tough uphill battle.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to sit on that IP until somebody wants it.
IP,
it works.
intellectual property that you own 100% of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm just going to sit on that just because it's such an uphill battle to actually get that out there. But while I was doing that, I like to have back burner projects. which we'll get to when we get to my other company as well. I like to have my back burner projects. So
and companies.
Yes, my back burner companies and projects. So
the
other thing I was working on at the time was, okay, I actually devised, this is unique, I think. I don't think anyone's come up with this kind of visualization, but there's the way I think of heat and how to address it is a square. It's a 2x2, so it's a square. The top two are internal and external, and the sides are direct and indirect. So and this also has to do with heat, right? If you're a lot of heat issues, whether it be cameras or electronics or people, have some combination of different values in these squares. For example, internal direct would be you are charging the battery and the battery is giving off heat, right? And that heats the internal system. And then if you want to make that worse, then you add external direct, which would be sunlight hitting it. And if you want to make it even worse, you add external ambient, which would be the ambient air temperature. And if you want to make that just absolutely over the top, you can do the what's the last square that I'm on here? I mixed up my squares, but you get the idea. You get the idea. Right. It's a combination of these things. Eliminating one can help the whole system.
Right.
Right, and it can also help you visualize solutions to a thermal question, right? Like if I want to cool down this light here, which is very bright, let's say it didn't have all the cooling things it has, because believe it or not, these lights have a lot of cooling technologies in them. How would you do it? Well, you have internal direct, right? So these lights are emitting their own heat. How do you fix that? Well, you're not gonna try and target the ambient air temperature. You're not gonna try and cool down the whole room to cool down the light. You're gonna target something that would fix the direct internal. So you put a heat sink on it. That's directly internal, right? So through doing this, I was already in the direct internal square with the wireless charging with the cooling, because that was directly cooling the battery. I was like, okay, what's the opposite square? And what can I do there?
Was that prompted by somebody in the marketplace to look at this alternate solution?
No.
So this is just you tinkering,
It's me tinkering. Tinkering is really just where all the innovation in the world comes from. Just people kind of messing around with stuff.
Well, and it hints towards like the gap analysis. It's like, where are people innovating? What are they doing over here? Where are people not innovating?
Right.
And your square system helps you look over here. Nobody's doing this.
It's great for thermal systems. So I was looking at, okay, what about like external, outside, things going on outside? Because I had a whole bunch of people who were telling me, yeah, my thing overheats outside. I'm like, well, my wireless chargers, you're not supposed to put that outside. I guess I don't know why you do that. And then I was like, okay, well, people have stuff overheating outside. What can I do? And I looked at the market. I saw what was out there, and nothing was really good. So I decided to look at something that hadn't been done in that space before, which was radiative cooling on mobile electronics. No one has done that before. No one has successfully launched a product that does that before. So that's what I did. So I actually have a piece here with me. This is after about $10,000 of innovation.
Wow.
This is a self-adhering radiative cooling vinyl. So it's pressure sensitive. It'll stick on hard, but it comes off easy, right? It's this really here. You can play around with that. Radiative cooling, which I'll get into right now. So everyone's familiar with the greenhouse effect, right? So you have a portion of the energy on Earth that gets reflected back through our atmosphere, from our atmosphere. It's not absolute. You can bypass it because it's not totally blocking everything. We lack the gases in our atmosphere to block energy in the 8 to 13 micrometer range, which is in the near infrared if you're thinking about the energy spectrum. So a lot of materials out there actually exploit this. Plants exploit this. They actually reflect and emit in the 8 to 13 micrometer range. Some plants do this really well to keep themselves cool, like desert plants. Pavement,
biomimicry then.
Yeah, pavement does that to a degree. It's widely emissive, but in the 8 to 13 micrometer, it's got a big chunk of it there. But if you can take a material and efficiently tune your emissivity to just that, because emissivity is a two-way street, right? If you're also absorbing, if your emissivity is also in, let's say, anything beyond the 8 to 13 micrometer range, anything on either side of it, if you're emissive in there too, then you're actually going to absorb heat from anything around it. But if your emissivity is just the 8 to 13 micrometer range, then you will only be losing energy to space, right? Because you can go directly out into space. So that's what I did. So if you combine that emissivity in the 8 to 13 micrometer range with reflectivity, that's why it's white, that's why it's a little white piece of paper here. If you combine those two together, then you can actually achieve sub-ambient temperatures because you're not absorbing any heat because you're reflecting it. And any heat you do have, any heat you are absorbing out of something, you're actually just going to shoot off right into space.
Wow.
Right? Now, I did not invent radiative cooling. However, I am probably one of the best guys at commercializing it so far. Because this has been tried for over 20, 30 years, maybe even 40 years at this point. And I don't know about you guys, nobody knows what radiative cooling is. It's not being used on anything. There's no products. There's nothing. And there's a variety of reasons why that is. I think the primary one is because it's finicky. It's hard for regular everyday people to use and understand. So my first thing with CryoX was, how do I make radiative cooling a consumer-facing technology? Right? That's why if people look at my brand or Google it afterwards, they'll see it's all like very consumer friendly. It's, funny logo and cool colors. I even have a bathing apparel line in there, right? Like
T-shirts?
Yeah, I got T-shirts, hats, bikinis. Like, it's just get people outside, get people to get in the lingo and the groove of what radiative cooling is. Yeah. That's part of it. And the other part is, like, how do you design the product to be as easy to use as possible, not just for consumers, but for other businesses, right? I think the reason why so many other radiative cooling startups fail or just companies in general fail, is because their product is hard for the end user to use, right? So, for instance, there's another product out there, it's radiative cooling. It's like a thin film, think like saran wrap, which is cool and all, but I mean, have you guys ever tried to apply saran wrap to something? It bunches and then you have to straighten it. No.
I can't do it in the kitchen.
Imagine trying to wrap your entire car with no bubbles with saran wrap.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. Yeah. That's why nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
But this product that I made, right from the beginning, I'm like, okay, what are the key issues? 1, how do you apply it? 2, can it stick? Yeah. Right? Do you have to have experience with vinyls to do this? And the answer to this product is no. I use 3M's most advanced vinyl. I use their most advanced adhesive that has micro air channels. Whoop, it's sticking to me. Micro air channels that let bubbles escape on their own, right? And you don't need to pre-coat a surface or anything like this. You just pressure sensitive it, and it's reapplicable, and you can cut it with scissors, and it's shelf-stable, and it sits forever in a bin, and it comes right out, and then you can use a heat gun to conform it to complex surfaces. It's great for my customers. They love it because they don't have to learn how to use it.
So let me clarify. How did you modify the 3M substrate to achieve what you were wanting to achieve in the market?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't get into too much of that because
But you did modify this. What we're looking at here is a modified, off-the-shelf product.
Yes.
That you have a proprietary means of making it work.
So what I can tell you is that the part that I'm using, the radiative cooling part, I don't make that. A company called Palo Alto Research Center, PARC, makes that. However, their version of it was and still is not ready for use in the real world. I still have an image of the original prototype of this stuff. It's very hard to work with. It's extremely dangerous, both to human health and to other objects. It's like corrosive and melts things.
Did you need to license this technology from PARC, or are you purchasing it just off the shelf from them?
I can't tell you whether or not the licensing deal will be done by the end of the year, but it should be.
Awesome.
So we're on like the home stretch of it right now.
It's fantastic. Congrats.
Because they need help commercializing this, and so far everyone else who's tried has not been able to get past the main issue of how do you make it just easy to use, because you can't just sell the paint to people.
Well, and that's an important point. There are tons of technologies that are on the shelf in different places that haven't found their niche in a commercial market yet.
Absolutely.
That people don't even know about because nobody's been able to figure out how to commercialize. So that's a huge key. It's a huge key.
I could talk all day on that. One of the things that really bugs me is how much IP is locked up in universities or other institutions, including research centers, that just they are so stingy about commercializing it that the benefits of that technology will never be seen. Right. This is one of those things. It's almost locked up there. Almost locked up forever. Like
at PARC. But just a note for the audience, Chad.
Sorry.
A part is at PARC in a filing cabinet. You found it.
Yeah.
But I do want to make a note for the audience. Here at Arizona State University, we have a technology commercialization office. You're well aware of their work. So it's SkySong Innovations, and they have the vast majority of their available technologies searchable on the web. It's a lot like going to Pinterest for intellectual property. So I know you've probably looked through the filing cabinet that is here at ASU through SkySong Innovations, but just to let everybody know, if you're interested in looking at technologies and you have the technology chops like Jordan has, that SkySong Innovations is a good place to start.
Well, and to add to that, most people aren't aware of that all of our government organizations that develop intellectual property has intellectual property that you can get for nearly not nothing, but low cost. Because, so for example, at NASA, there's people that have a whole bunch of intellectual property, but NASA doesn't own it. They want to get it out.
Yeah.
And so we're actually working on some other projects where we're trying to
I remember you telling me about that.
do some due diligence to see if we can make some companies out of some of that.
Taxpayer-funded tech, and you're leveraging.
Yep.
I'm assuming the park technology was privately funded.
All privately funded. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, sorry, we digress.
You're good. We're talking about
We're
IP.
IP nerds. So,
IP is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So continue your story. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you. So let's follow on that, because most people think of IP as patents, right?
Yeah.
But what else is there? I mean, how much more is it to IP?
I mean, my favorite example is Coca-Cola. There is no Coca-Cola patent, and that's because, in my opinion, I don't like patents. I have one. I've applied for a few, right?
Yep.
I don't like them. I don't think they're very useful, especially in today's age, because I don't. It's almost political, but for like.
We don't have to go into it, but would you describe what you have here? Is this a secret recipe in the same way Coca-Cola is a secret recipe?
Absolutely.
So you're taking ingredients from multiple sources, putting them together in a creative way.
Yeah.
That solves a problem.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, and only I know. So.
And by the way, CryoX, is it .com?
.co.
Cryo, CRYO.
X.co. Yeah.
Check out the branding. Your branding is intellectual property,
It is.
right? It's a very creative representation of solving for X using thermo.
So solving for X. Yes.
Awesome. So anyway, sorry, Chad. But yeah, I'm really curious now that you've got this, this trade secret here, this technology. Where do you stand right now with this product in the market? Because we also want to hear about your other forays into solving problems.
So my first use case for this was cell phones. So I put it on a phone, and it worked, and that was all my initial testing. In fact, 3 years ago yesterday, I did my first official test of this on a Samsung phone. I had two identical ones. I put one outside the other one. Well, they're both outside, they're both next to each other, sitting in the sun all day, measured the internal battery temperatures throughout the day, and I have a beautiful chart on my website that shows the results.
I saw the demo on your site.
What kind of differential could you get?
In November 15th of 2020, it was a 11-degree difference.
Wow.
Pass that sticker back. I'm gonna use that sticker. I think he's giving it to us. How much you charging? Like $25 for a phone cooler?
Yeah, about. So I mean, the commercialization of this, the pricing of it is one of the biggest issues for me, because it's not cheap to make this stuff. It's very expensive.
Right.
And all of my innovations actually thus far have been cost reduction innovations. So I'm on my third version of this right now. And I've decreased, the second one didn't decrease price that much, but what it did do is it made it easier for vehicle installers to use. So I'll get into that in a second. I made it easier for vehicle installers to use because I cut the thickness in half.
Got it.
And my newest one, which I'm about to come out with pretty soon, I just need to finalize some things, but that one will actually cut the production cost in half.
Oh, that's great.
Which is awesome. I need to do that, and it won't affect the overall performance at all.
That's amazing.
It might even improve it actually.
Wow.
So
that's great.
So I'm
again,
imagining your
iterating.
production right now is you in some sort of store and lock facility, or your basement, or your.
It's my apartment.
Your apartment.
Yeah, yeah, it's my apartment, which I share with my brother, so he doesn't like that I have like about a football field's worth of vinyl sitting in the living room. But
typical entrepreneurship.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. He's
good.
like, Jordan, I'm trying to play video games. Can you like move this out of my room? I'm like,
I mean, he's not being exposed to any corrosive chemical,
No,
so
no.
your brother's safe.
He's safe, about as safe as I am, right? So, but basically, the reason I've been innovating is, one, to get the price down because I have markets to get into, one of those markets. So cell phones were a great start, right? But just because of the nature of consumers, it's very hard to deal with consumers because they have all sorts of little issues, or they don't understand things. You have to deal with returns. You have to custom cut each thing, and then put it in. It's too hands-on.
You're so annoying, man, as a consumer.
I know.
Consumers
are tough nuts.
But it's so hands-on for me as a solopreneur.
Totally.
That it's like impossible.
Yeah.
It's just, I can do it, but it's like a full-time Etsy job.
So now you're exploring B2B. So you were
Exactly.
business to consumer. Now you're looking at B2B applications, business to business.
Exactly. So B2B is a lot easier. Your margin's a little lower because you're working on scale and volume. But the markets you can get into can have real impact for your customers. So I have 3 unique customers right now. I'm working on adding some more. The first customer I got was a fleet management company based out of Phoenix. Okay. And I spent, it was, being an entrepreneur is tough because you have to be your own sales guy. And you have to be able to take a lot of no's before you get a yes. That day, my goal that day was to find one company in Mesa or Phoenix that would put this on their vehicles. So I approached every single RV company on Broadway Road in Mesa. There's over 50 of them. I approached them all.
You counted them, I bet.
And they all said no. It was either price, or they didn't get it, or they're like, we don't need it, or talk to corporate, or whatever. It was all versions of no. And then the last one of the day was over in Phoenix. As I'm going along, heading that way, I go to All Fleet Vans, and I talk to the manager there, and I have a big sample piece with me. It's about a square foot.
Yeah.
And we're walking around outside, and I'm like, hey, I got this material. It can cool down vehicles. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. I hand the piece to him. As we're walking around, he looks at me, and he looks back. He's like, what is this thing doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's getting colder. What on earth is this thing doing? And I'm like,
kidding.
well, that's the point. And he's like, really? Like,
and it just clicked.
This is like the middle of the summer, by the way. So he's like looking at it. He's like feeling it. It's like, why is it getting colder? I'm like, well, radiative cooling. And I explained the whole thing to him. He's like, I want 150 square feet of this to test.
Wow.
That was a $3,000 order for me.
Wow.
That was my first client. I didn't even like have clients before that. I just had like the cell phone stuff.
That is
I was like,
amazing.
whoa. So we're still doing the testing right now. It's a long-term durability test because that's what matters to fleet vehicles, right? You have to understand your customer. Yeah. They care about the long-term durability. But that's a market I really want to get into more because the energy savings for EV vehicles is actually huge. So I did the math and I figured out in the summer I can increase the range of a Tesla Model 3 by 20%. Really? Or basically increase its efficiency by 20%.
Sounds like
on large, like think of those Amazon Rivian vans, which I would love to get onto. I think I can increase their efficiency by up to 40% in the summer.
And that would be just like putting it all on the outside?
Just on the roof, right? Because radiative
roof.
Cooling only works on the roof of an object, facing the sky. If you face it towards the earth, you get the opposite effect. You get radiative heating, which again, you can actually utilize that for certain things. So I came up with a design for like a water heating or cooling paddle where you run water through like a big paddle, a flat paddle. It has radiative cooling technology on it. If you face it towards the sky, it's going to cool the water. If you turn it 90 degrees, it'll heat it. Right? And you just turn it, right? It's almost like turning on your faucet, hot or cold.
Cool. So if you want to get in a Rivian, you have to make sure the CEO is holding the material.
Yes.
That's right.
In the middle of summer in Phoenix during his next visit.
Well,
right?
I mean, I think he'd be amazed by what happens if you just feel this stuff just in action. Because you can show the thermal images, you can put temperature leads in it, and it shows you the temperature difference. But when you feel it, that's when you're tangible. Like, it's tangible for us as humans. Our monkey brains like that, right? So he was my first client. And now on these vehicles, these electric vehicles, I think I can increase it by at least 40%. And the electricity savings end up being around $4 or $5 out of $17 a day for electrical charging costs, which means this material would actually pay for itself within 3 to 4 years. I think it'll last more than 3 to 4 years. Actually, I think it should. I don't know yet because this hasn't been around 3 to 4 years. But I'm doing the testing. I got a piece on my car. I haven't washed my car in like 6 months. I would love
Neither
to.
have I. And I'm not even doing any testing.
I keep telling them,
I would love to wash my car, but I can't because I'm doing this like how dirty can I get it test.
Yeah.
And it still works.
Wow.
Like no issues.
Yep.
Hey, so Jordan, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt,
you're
but
good.
I know it sounds like you're willing to tell us who your other 2 clients are.
Yes.
But I'm going to stop you there. And I would love for you, because Chad and I know the journey you've been on. As you're testing this B2B go-to-market strategy, you've also, I don't know where he finds the time to do this, but you found an opportunity to actually serve a completely different population, right?
Yes.
So, we have aging parents, we have some of us have aging grandparents, and I'd love for you, if you wouldn't mind, tell our audience how you kind of it's not a pivot from what you're talking about right now. Completely different problem statement. Tell us that story for a few minutes, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so it started with the need that all entrepreneurs face, which is I need money. So I got to eat. So CryoX, of course, it's a startup, so you don't expect to make money in your first year, let alone 2 years.
And you're going full time. You're basically full time on this. Post graduation.
I'll admit, I even drive Uber at nights, like to make ends meet, right? But that's entrepreneur life, because you put aside your time and money right now, so you can focus on growing your business, and then you can go sell it for $5 million in a year.
Right.
Right. Like that's the goal. So I needed the money, right? So I know I'm good with tech support. I've been helping my grandma, in high school, everyone knew me, and even in college, everyone knew me. It's like if something went wrong with the projector or whatever, they'd be like, Jordan, fix it. I'd go and fix it or whatever. So I just had that skill set. So I first started like a little it wasn't like a LLC really, it was just I went around my neighborhood, put up some flyers saying I can fix your computer, right? And I got like 1 or 2 people, which was cool. And then I'm at this point, I'm pretty deeply embedded with a bunch of entrepreneurs all over the valley. And I actually work out with one of them. We go do calisthenics at like the park or whatever. Great. So I was telling him a little bit about what I was doing, and he had recently just kind of exited, not for money, by the way. The company kind of collapsed. So he had just exited this Web3 startup. So he's a back-end operational guy. His name's Andy. He's my co-founder. He just exited this company. And he was kind of looking for another thing to do. And his brain got really ticking on like, there's a huge market of seniors who need tech support. There's just a huge market of them.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I'm just kind of doing this small tech support thing. He's like, well, what if we just scaled this massively? And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we just started that. The company's been around since January.
What's the name of this company?
Fourcher Technologies. So we took the actual original, CryoX used to be called Fourcher Tech, but I still had the LLC after I transitioned it to CryoX. So I had the LLC already. So now we're calling it Tech Support AZ, but Fourcher Tech
different
is different
DBA names.
It's a DBA. Yeah. But the legal name is Fourcher Tech.
For those who don't know, a DBA is a doing business as.
Thank you. Yes. Always got to
the acronyms.
Yeah, the acronyms are killer in this.
So we've been scaling. I mean, there's a lot of different things we're doing. This is my first time running a service company. I'm really like a product guy.
Right.
That's what I really excel at. I mean, I wrote my thesis on R&D. Right? I love product, but service-based industries do have a lot of potential, and you can sort of productize within the service-based industry. So we actually developed a unique business model where we took, of course, the Uber-style business model, an operations standpoint, and that allowed us to not have to have a brick and mortar or an office, and that allowed us to cover almost the entire valley with a minimal staff. Right? We have right now, I think, 5 technicians, and we cover the entire valley.
And the technicians are independent contractors for the company.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's the Uber model.
Exactly.
They're your drivers.
Yep. They're the contractors. They get me. Andy's a great back-end developer, so he built an entire back-end to run this whole thing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So just everything from scheduling to tasking to all of that stuff just goes right through the back-end, and we send out our technicians. They go help them, and that's not just what it's about too, because that's a little technical. But if you just take someone who's good with technology and do that, you're not going to get very far as seniors.
Right.
Because that's a different level of care and expectation from them.
Right.
There's a cultural fit, right? There's how do you do things? There's also like practical things, like you have to speak louder, directly in front of them.
Yes,
you have to write everything down very clearly in big
Yes.
letters. I've been helping my own grandparents for a while, so I already had this kind of down, and I learned more the more senior clients I helped. So now when I'm training up my technicians, I'm able to kind of inspire them, be like, hey, they're not just customers, they're family, right?
Wow.
That is. I think our new DBA tagline is not just troubleshoot, connect.
Wow, that's powerful.
like that.
And it's not just marketing. That's like actually how we operate, right? And other than like death, our turnover rate is super low, like extremely low for our clients. Once they come to us, they never go back to Best Buy or Data Doctors or anything. They never go back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the importance of that. Now to get into like,
Do you have any clients that just call because they want somebody to come by and hang out with
Well,
them for a little while? I could see that.
they won't admit it, but
Totally.
yeah, some of them, yeah.
Like, the
which
power
is
button's
fair.
over here. No.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
do you do TikTok support for the seniors as well? Like when they're having trouble doing
They-
their post-production?
they don't know anything about social media, which is actually how we do. Actually, that's a great lead into how do we get our
Yes.
customers?
Yeah.
Because they're not on social media.
Right.
They're not really even on email. And so, and I don't feel comfortable sending out spam emails because I hate spam emails.
Right.
So why would I even do that? I'm not going to be part of that problem. I'm not going to do spam phone calls either because they're on their phones, but they don't.
Yeah.
How do you reach these people? So I actually figured out a way to make money advertising. We do virtual reality events and IT courses at senior communities.
That's
Right? So I had some
Brilliant.
Samsungs laying around, throw them in a VR headset. That was our first test. They loved it. Seniors love VR.
Yeah.
Who
Like
would
what
love
are they doing in VR? Are they
They're-
playing games?
They're
or-
traveling. They like to go visit
Yeah.
like Tanzania and
Probably
Israel
places they
and
can't get
stuff.
to.
They like
Yeah.
they like to go to the Grand Canyon, like the
Wow,
really
that's
basic
brilliant.
stuff.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
So how long is this session that you will, like if you do this class, I'm just out of curiosity, are you spending a day with them? Is it
No,
a few hours or what?
So basically, what we do is we route through the activities directors. So this is the activities directors have all sorts of.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's
angle.
a good
They
idea.
have all
Yeah.
sorts of activities. In
Right.
fact, we have sales guys who go specifically to the activities directors in each community and
that's
cold
brilliant.
approach them and say, hey, we'd like to help
great.
fill your schedule with a fun event that isn't a miniature horse on Thursdays or the guitar guy
Right.
on Fridays. Like
The guitar.
we wanted to do something a little different, right? Because that's literally that's the most exciting things they will ever bring is a guitar guy on Friday and then miniature horse
Yeah.
on Thursday. Other than that, it's arts and crafts every day, which is just
Yeah.
BS, right? So
Yeah.
Much more exciting.
they need something fun in their schedule, and this is it.
Yeah.
And it's innovative and it's new, and we can always change it and update it and give them new content every single
Oh
time.
my gosh.
So these are usually about an hour during the day, and they're tons of fun. They're tons
Yeah.
of fun, and my technicians, they come and they run them now. It used to be that I had to run them all, but now my technicians and they run them. We pay them to run it.
Sure, they have a blast too.
They do. It's
Yeah.
really fun.
And that is the
Rewarding.
lead-in for the technicians to say, hey, by the way, we have technicians.
And then we leave flyers, we advertise, we do all that stuff there.
That's cool.
And then we also do IT courses, which are a little more direct on the advertising because they're like, this is how you do something.
Yeah.
Also, we can help you.
so
So that we get paid to do these. We
Yeah.
get paid to do these events. And the
So you're
communities love it.
marketing and it's another revenue stream.
It is.
This kid's a genius, man.
So
he
it's-
knows thermo and he knows how to
Yeah.
market.
So I was
a
thinking
company.
it's literally the golden age of VR, right? So when you put that,
You're going to coin that? Hey,
I know,
you heard
right?
it here
I might
first.
take that.
Check-
I might take
you might
that.
need that.
Dr.
I'm just
Kennedy, golden age of
saying. VR.
entertainment and
Okay,
VR.
you better name a price now and every time I use that, otherwise.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go. There we go.
This is
We'll talk
intellectual
after. We'll talk
property.
after.
We just
Yeah.
copyrighted.
We'll have a
Yeah, okay.
transaction.
Jordan, this is an amazing story. Chad, I'm so proud that we have the ability to claim this much of
Yeah.
Jordan's success thus far with these multiple companies, multiple products.
Yep.
You've even got products, in your back pocket that you still haven't brought to market. So,
Burner projects for Fourcher Tech. Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yep.
I'm blown away. And the fact that you were able to come back so soon after leaving us at ASU, hopefully you're
Yep.
considering a master's degree. We can get some of that ad money to come into our coffers. No, I'm just kidding. But absolute pleasure to have you. We look forward to having you back, in future seasons so we can hear about what happens with the B2B customers that you're building through CryoX. And I have every confidence that Fourcher Technologies and the senior care or senior support program will continue to grow.
Yeah, you might hear about the projects I have, my backburner projects for that one in the future.
All right, that sounds awesome.
Well, hey, we're going to wrap up this segment of the episode. It's always fun to hear an entrepreneurial story, and I'm so glad you let Chad and I jump in with clarifying questions. But thanks for joining us, everyone out there watching or listening in the cyber world, the virtual world,
the metaverse,
the thermal cyber.
For those of you watching this, we also are thrilled. We have a full studio of folks that have joined us from probably both the Polytechnic campus that are enrolled in programs here, as well as our Tempe, downtown, West Valley campuses. So at this point, Chad, I think it'd be fun to open up questions from our live studio audience, and they can grill Jordan either technical questions, he can certainly handle those, or if you want to speak to Chad and my heart here, we can talk about new venture and startup related questions as well. So Jordan, you cool with taking a few questions before we wrap up here today?
Absolutely. I'd love to take all the questions they've got.
Awesome. Well, I think our friend
right
Mohammed is here representing our Tech Entrepreneurship Management degree program. Mohammed, you're early in your career as an undergrad, I believe. So any questions you have for Jordan?
So I have a question for you. What piece of advice would you give for a current students here at ASU?
Network your ass off.
Oh yeah, hey, cut that out. You can't use that word on television. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll just use harder words. Oh no, I'm kidding. Yeah, you need to network your butt off.
There you go.
That, right? You need to network. So whether it be within the classes, whether it be with the faculty here, whether it be through Venture Devils programs, whether it be through all the other events like this. It's always an opportunity to meet people and to learn things. I think the more people you meet and the more of people's lives you're able to kind of like get a sense for, I think the better decisions you can make as an entrepreneur. Part of being a chief executive officer is knowing what to execute on and how to execute on it. And if you just kind of exist in a bubble or a vacuum, you're not going to be able to make the correct decisions, and you won't be able to pivot properly. You won't be able to know if you're going to pivot or not. So. That's the co-founder calling. So you gotta talk to people.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that's great. So Jordan mentioned a program we have at ASU called Venture Devils. So that feeds into kind of a pre-step in his answer, which is to just start. So we have a motto. Many of you have seen our T-shirts around campus. It says "Just Start," powered by ASU and our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. So if any of you have an idea to solve a problem through a new product, a new service, that's step one. And then Venture Devils is this community of people that will help you realize you're not alone. It can be a very lonely process of being in the lab trying to solve for X on your own. And if I heard Jordan correctly, through his networking, he was able to kind of build a support system.
Yep.
So great question and even better answer. Any other folks? Hopefully we have some questions from the audience. We have a microphone, so we just need, do you mind, Mohammed, throw it. We're going to get this on film. Throw the microphone
stuff.
And see if you can catch it. Okay. You got to stand up, Mohammed, if you can. Yeah, let's see how this goes.
Okay.
Yeah, just chuck it. There we go. Whoa. Oh, yes.
All right.
We had an assist. We had an assist from the audience. Good throw. Thank you for your help up there. Yeah, so you just speak right into the box.
So your CryoX business, I noticed that it does have to be white, the sticker. Do you worry about the limited spectrum of color clashing with potential businesses' branding?
Occasionally that is an issue. I mean, luckily it only goes on the top of whatever it's on. So if I were to put it on a school bus, the bus can remain yellow. In fact, if you guys notice, the tops of those buses are white, probably for thermal reasons. Although that's, I can beat that by at least 15 degrees. So, but that's sometimes an issue. However, what's great about this material is actually you can really print on it. You can print on this stuff, and it doesn't, if you print it on like a quarter of it, you're going to reduce your performance by a quarter, right? But for some companies, the branding is a little more important, right? They want some of the performance, but they also want the branding. They can pick and choose how much they want to print on here. right? And it can work with any print system. So.
Great question. Anybody else want to catch the microphone? This is like part of the show. You get to test your
participation piece.
Nice throw, man. Well done.
You can even hear that going through the air.
You got a little wind.
I have a bit of a technical question. Why won't it work if it's not facing the sun?
Yeah, so it's not the sun, it's the sky. So radiative cooling, like I said, relies on emissivity. So reason I do this is because I'm visualizing the electromagnetic spectrum and how much of that is actually reflected. There's a small hole, like I said, the 8 to 13 micrometer range. You have to shoot the energy through, you have to convert the energy to that spectrum and shoot it off to the vacuum of space. Space, just like high pressure air moves to low pressure, high energy moves to low energy. Earth is relatively high energy compared to the vacuum of space, so it will just kind of leave through that atmospheric hole.
But if you wanted to cool an object, why would you need to send the energy all the way to space? Why not just the surrounding air radiate it just away from the object?
I can help.
Yeah, so all objects are currently already doing that. You're doing that, this water bottle's doing it, right? But if you take all of those existing things and then you combine them with sending it to the vacuum of space, then you can really get some cooling power. Otherwise, you're just going to cool at the same rate as everything else. I'm able to beat the way everything else cools. That's why it can cool more.
Well, and if I can add to that, just from the physics and the heat transfer component of that, you're talking about emitting at the speed of light. So the fact that it goes to space is not a real big deal when you're traveling that fast with the energy.
All I meant was that it's being radiated. The only difference in saying that it's being radiated to the surroundings and it's being radiated to space is that it's going to space and not bouncing back from the atmosphere. That's what you mean, right?
Sort of, but again, like it's not going to radiate out if everything around it is near the same temperature, right? It's not going to do it. Just because, again, it's like high pressure to low pressure, this high energy state we have here on Earth. If you get a really high temperature differential, if you put this on something really hot, it's going to vent out more heat, right? Just because the vacuum of space is there to, well, do nothing, just kind of take everything out. It just leaves, has that opportunity to.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just suppose suppose the moon comes in front, right? So are you saying that if the moon comes, then there'll be some change, just because there's nothing and just because there's something in front?
You know what? I don't know. I'm saying I don't know because I like doing crazy tests. I actually did the first ever solar eclipse radiative cooling test. So I've done it. I've done a test where the moon is somewhere part of the system. I don't know the effects of the actual moon, and I'm not going to just straight out just like dismiss that because I'm all about testing. I'm all about not going with whatever the white papers say until I test it myself. So who knows? Maybe there is an interaction between the moon and radiative cooling technologies. I don't know. I haven't tested it. From what the papers say, it would be negligible, none, no effect. But who knows? Maybe there is one. I just would have to test it.
You'd have to point it right at the moon as it's going the whole time.
Yeah, and
if
you'd have to assume that it's radiating out in a like linear instead of like that.
And a non-technical question, which out of everything you've started, which one do you see going the farthest?
Do we see going furthest? Well, it depends what you mean by furthest. So by nature, hardware startups are supposed to be sold, right? And service companies are supposed to just keep going for a long time because one of them is a continual revenue generator. I mean, Apple isn't really a hardware company anymore. They actually make a lot, if not most of their money on reoccurring services. App Store, subscriptions, credit card that they've launched, ad revenue, all of these different factors make actually a lot more money than the iPhone really does at first glance. Just the iPhone enables them to. So that's why like either CryoX turns into a services company of some type, which I don't see happening. That's not really how this works. I plan to sell this at some point after I develop it more. Either that or Fourcher Tech, we are developing products. So for senior use, we're working on a virtual reality product for dementia, and we're working on AI products to help with tech support in general. So,
wow, it's a great question.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah. Hi, I've got a question. Actually, a little comment here. The Sheeran effect, you could totally set that up to help answer that testing question for the visual people. You just put your material in front of it and you can see which gases or, the interaction between temperature and
the
air.
one where you got you take the alcohol and you put it in a vacuum chamber?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, if you guys turn around, you can see the effect happening on the projector right there.
That one.
You mean off my head? You can see?
Yeah, I see some cooling going on.
Yeah.
So my mind is racing right now with different use cases of your technology. And you said that you were a tinkerer, right? And you went from tinkering with something to finding something you're passionate about, or at least something with a large enough market share or opportunity that you're like, I'm going to execute on this. Can you explain that process between tinkering and then executing on an idea?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes down to, again, you have to talk to people, right? So a big problem a lot of entrepreneurs have is they'll come up with an idea that is absolutely worthless, but it's really cool, right? So I see this all the time when I visit Silicon Valley. It's like, you'll see everybody has their chatbot startup, but the world doesn't need another chatbot. Right. And it's cool that their chatbot can impersonate Marilyn Monroe, but nobody cares, right? So you have to really figure out, okay, I've made this cool thing. Who cares about it? And are there enough people who care about it that I can actually make money off of them, right? That's where it is. So whenever in the future, if you're ever going to tinker on something, tinker on it and pivot a bunch of times. Talk to people, right? Because my little phone cooling case thing, that might work out in the real world really well, but the technical feasibility of it, and I can make it, but I can't sell it for $400 if it takes me $300 to make, right? So you got to think about, is there a market that will pay for the thing at the price point I can afford? Can I make the thing feasible, and do people like it? And if they don't, what can I change to make it something they like and still have it so they can afford to buy it? Right.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Jordan, go ahead, please. Pass the mic. There we go. Successful pass. Before you ask your question, great question, by the way. Your answer to that question is in direct alignment with what Chad and I teach in the classroom in this domain of what is typically known as lean startup methodology.
Yep.
NSF, the National Science Foundation, has funded a program for inventors called Innovation Core, or I-Core. And it basically forces inventors to do exactly what Jordan just described, to go out and talk to 100 marketplace sources to learn, is the problem that I'm solving in fact a problem? And if my solution fits the problem, will you pay for it? And so if you're new to this concept of testing your invention and your experiments against what the market will not only use, but more importantly, pay for. Just a plug for Chad and myself that we teach this in class through the Technology Entrepreneurship Management Program, as well as through Venture Devils. And so I'm curious, to that point, were you formally exposed to this methodology, or for many entrepreneurs, did it just come naturally to you that, I got to go talk to the market to get this right?
Yeah, well, part of the TEM program, I'll give you guys this bone here. Part of the TEM program that was so great is that I was pretty much taught, hey, you need to put a survey out and ask all your fellow students what they think of this idea you've come up with. Okay. You don't even want to know how many Google Forms I've had to make that do just that, right? That's just a part of the curriculum. I would have figured it out anyways, but School of Hard Knocks style, right? It would have taken me a while and a lot of failures. So the TEM major, that kind of section of it did set me up for success.
Good.
In fact, let me add to that. There's really 3 questions that you have to be able to ask. Is something feasible, meaning will it or will it not work? Is something viable? If you can even make it, can you actually sell it for more and survive? And is it desirable? Does somebody even want it? If you can positively answer those 3 questions in the affirmative, then you have a shot. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but you have a shot.
Yeah.
And you can measure those answers, right?
You can measure all those.
The last one, is somebody actually willing to give you money?
Yeah.
Right? That's in the world of innovation, that's a lot of times the toughest question for certainly technical founders to wrap their minds around. It's like, oh my God, I actually have to ask somebody to pay me. And that's what I love about your story, going to all those fleet vehicle dealers. You weren't just showing the solution, you were asking for money on the spot.
Yeah. It's like, do you want to buy this?
That is,
yes or no?
I just want to make it clear, that is not easy for anybody to do, let alone a technologist, somebody that, prides himself on being in the lab, running experiments, reading white papers. So kudos. This is the combination of multiple skill sets coming together, and this is relatively rare. So it's great to hear this firsthand from Jordan. So next question, please. And I apologize if you'd like to introduce yourself, maybe tell us what you're studying, or if you have a company.
Absolutely. I'm Xavier Fennell. I'm actually a TEM major, and my question is based on what you learned at ASU. Of all the things that you learned here at ASU, what do you think is the most valuable to you, and where did you learn it from, or who?
Yeah, so that's a hard question because there's a lot of separate things I learned here that are all very valuable to me. So I guess we can go through kind of each of those. So the first one that comes to mind is I took a leadership class here. It was required, I think. And it was, I didn't think I needed it, right? I'm an Eagle Scout, right? I got my leadership down. But no, I did, because there's a lot of different things that I learned in there that are just kind of formality things. I was already doing it, but I really needed to remember to do it more, which is when you shake someone's hand, really be firm, right? I encounter a lot of students who have the weak handshake. Come on, man, squeeze it.
You got to coach them up, right?
Yeah,
you got to help coach them up.
So, and maybe another thing, again, through the TEM major, it's always take that opportunity to kind of get really into the startup role playing that we do in that major. And be the team leader, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to lead teams. So be the team leader for each of those projects. Don't just kind of sit on the sidelines. And that's really important. Getting involved in the classes is important. Talking to the professors, staying afterwards, right? Learning about their lives. What's great about the Poly campus and TEM specifically is we have a lot of professors who came from the business world. Like Sherman, she was head of L'Oreal Brazil for years, a decade or more.
Most people don't even know that.
And Chavez has been flipping businesses for his whole life, right? And Cho is a technologist with $1 billion patents, right? So you have all these people who have real world experience, and to just kind of go to class and leave is really a waste of that time that you have with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi.
So I'm Udit. I'm doing a double major in robotics and TEM. I'm an undergraduate student. I'm the founding partner at the House of Astor. It's a design studio. And I'm also the founder of Ekanshi. It's a company, it's a startup back in India. So consider this as a follow-up question from the last time we met.
Yeah.
I guess you remember.
I remember you, yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about how can, ChiroX could be put on D-brand. These people sell these cases for $40, $60, even $80, right? And they have all the technology that you can think of that is needed to put something on a phone case. They've gone everywhere. They've gone MagSafe. They've gone Google certified, all the ways. So have you never thought of just, giving up on all that R&D for putting it on a phone case, telling them that I have the sticker, why don't you figure out a way to put it on your cases? I give you some of my IP to use and sell your products. This is the royalty that I take.
Yeah, so that's really actually more of a technical question than a business question. So for instance, D-Brand, if you guys don't know, is a company that makes phone skins, very popular in the tech world. Phone skins are just stickers you put on the back of your phone to customize it. D-Brand sells their phone skins for $16, maybe $17. I did check when I was doing my market analysis. That's how I figured out how to make my vinyl work, is I actually copied how they kind of do their vinyl work. I took apart their skin. I ordered some of their skins. I took them apart and reverse engineered them. But I did improve upon it, though. I used a much better adhesion method than they did. So I don't know why they're not doing that. But in terms of, it's about usability. So this material is excellent. It's very durable. But the one thing it can't do is skin oils and abrasion at the same time. Not very good with that. I mean, imagine you had, how often a day do you guys hold your phones? Hours and hours.
Don't ask. It's
we
don't want to know.
It gets grody really quick. It's a pure white surface, so you notice too. So in terms of like having it for a phone skin, it was great for that first initial market, but in terms of a mass market product, it's too risky for many companies to like do a mass market consumer available like phone thing that you're touching all the time, because your lifespan is about a month without a case protecting it. And dbrand's whole thing is no cases. So it wouldn't match with that company's kind of goals. Although dbrand's marketing team is quite brilliant, and I think they could pull it off. They like to give people the bird all the time as part of their marketing. So I think they could pull it off if they really wanted to, but it wouldn't. No.
Dbrand is just sorry. Yeah. But dbrand is just an example that I gave. But there are a lot of case companies, you know, case and skin. I mean, skins and cases again becomes two different markets.
Yeah.
So you could look into the cases company, not skin company, but you can. I feel that there's a lot of potential that could possibly be there. Yeah. Because you'll save up a lot on R&D, a lot on manufacturing money because they have the setup, a lot on marketing money because you wouldn't need to, and you just sit back, work on making sure it's put on other important places. And while this is like a big source of revenue, no need to scale up manufacturing, no need to scale up customer support.
Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah. We're gonna broker a field of use license negotiation where you can let him run with, because he wants to bring this to market through the phone. So we're just gonna let him do that
sector.
So let's follow up during our lunch after. We have one more question. Yeah, in the back. Do you mind chucking it up there?
Just chuck it, bro.
Oh, please
nice.
Let your dog say hello as well. This is the first time we've had a pup in the studio, so
it's a new market segment.
Looks like a tiger.
Yeah, she's new. Thank you for the comments and compliments. So I actually wanted to bring the conversation back to talking about starting, like tinkering and doing different types of market research, because I guess for my introduction, like I'm Miguel Bustamante. I'm a PhD student here at SU. I am in the Tempe campus, and I'm currently working in high pressure research to develop new types of semiconductor materials that I think are gonna be useful for transistor technology, like future transistor technology at least. And my question was directed specifically towards because it's like a long-term project, and it's more like high-end customers, right? I don't know if y'all have any specific advice for that specific, type of project or
Yeah, so you're making basically transistor tech for high-end customers.
Yeah, substrate materials, right? Like I don't know if you're familiar with MOSFETs.
Yeah,
MOSFET, So my idea is to create substrate materials that could counter polysilicon alternatives. But again, it will be expensive and whatnot. So I'm still workshopping the idea.
When you say expensive,
yeah, high pressure tests are really expensive.
It's all relative though. So without me even knowing your market, you can actually look and see how relative is it. So actually, I got a no the other day on cryoskin. I got a no. So I was at a trade convention and I went to a booth. They were made one of those hardcover tents that goes on top of your car that you can sleep in. And I was like, oh, that thing probably gets hot, right? Cool it down. And they were actually really interested, right? They asked me a ton of questions. They wanted to know the performance and everything. But when I told them how much it would cost, no, they couldn't even do it. They only had $100 to play with basically in terms of margin. And it was going to cost them $600 to cover it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the question, it's not a question of will your customer like it, it is can they afford it, right?
Right. Because
that is
the driver. Processes like that deal with high pressure, like equipment are really they're like focused, concentrated on silicon. So I know like the manufacturing processes for silicon are very like energy intensive. And I know at least like for silicon, I don't know if you're familiar with gallium nitride and gallium arsenide. Yeah. Those are both made like at high pressure and high temperatures. So it will be something along the lines of like having a wide bandgap semiconductor material that could compete with those types of materials, which have more intensive synthesis processes. Again, and I'm kind of trying to target maybe like doing materials that are more like less toxic, right? Like gallium, for example, right? And sticking to those things. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of innovation that you can do. Yeah. Again, my past 2 iterations of what I've been doing for this product have not really been like making it cool better. Yeah. Because I kind of reached a theoretical maximum of that. It's making it cheaper to produce while still being the same good product. Right? That's the innovation. So what I would suggest, is if you can't compete in terms of features, compete in terms of price.
Right.
Really get in there. If you have a great feature set and a good price, there's no reason why people wouldn't buy that, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good, yeah, but again, like most of these materials aren't really being studied yet, so it's like, it will be interesting to see, like they're supposedly supposed to have better qualities and properties than the silicon, polysilicon. So at least like as far as like material properties, I think we can compete, but it would just be like discovering, like you said, optimizing the processing and stuff like that. But I appreciate your advice. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think I'd add to that too. I mean, you're talking about something where you're probably asking a customer to modify their process.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe like I would tackle it like through like doing some industrial like research, right? Like to understand the process, like because I know they do lithography and then do all types of things that that make a device functional, right? So I would want to target like a substrate material that would be like a bit, like able to kind of maybe mix with those things, right?
So regardless of what the specifics are, general rule of thumb, either one, you're going to get a 10x improvement in performance, or two, a 10x decrease in cost.
Right.
if you're not getting in that range, they may not consider a change in process.
Right.
So you want to think about those things just as a general set for somebody to really say, okay, we're going to redesign our process so we can use your new fandangled material in whatever. And it has to be worth their while.
And how you uncover those insights is via customer development in tandem with product development.
Well,
right?
But do you ask people, like, I guess like you ask technical folks or
so this is exactly what I mentioned earlier. I'm so glad you're here. And for those of you in the audience that are doing technological research, especially in an ASU affiliated lab under the direction of a faculty researcher, we have a program called ICOR. It's funded by the National Science Foundation, and it's in addition to your PhD, your master's, or your undergraduate research work. So you can actually apply and very easily be accepted to a co-curricular training program. So if you want to follow suit with Jordan, he didn't do it necessarily in a ASU-funded lab, but for those of you that are doing Fulton Undergraduate Research Initiative or the graduate version of that program where you're in a lab, you're oftentimes compensated as a researcher.
I'm an RA. So I'm like fully funded.
So this is perfect. For those of you in that category, last thing we'll say is we're plugging our ICOR program and all the courses that we teach at both the undergraduate and graduate level. We don't expect you to go out and learn the process of customer development on your own. You can join this community that already exists at ASU that have this vision to turn your inventions into a saleable product. And that's what the mission is.
How long would it like last, and then like,
it's generally it's generally the equivalent to a half a semester are the training programs, and they're offered on a reoccurring basis.
And then it used to be, I don't know what the current funding is, but it used to be the ICOR program would pay up to $50,000 for you to go all over the world to talk to whoever you need to talk to. Right. Specifically, what's the problem? What do they have? It's substantial.
Let's chat offline, and for those of you on our watching this asynchronously on YouTube or listening on our podcast, please do a quick Google search for NSF ICOR. It's spelled like the military spelling, corpse, and we can put that into our chat. And we have a fully funded iteration of that program at ASU. We're the lead investigator on that program. It's the Desert Pacific region of the ICOR Hub training program. So we're very proud, essentially, to teach all of you in the audience to do exactly what Jordan did, thanks to the TEM program, but also on his own accord as a kind of a market-facing inventor, which is, I'll be honest, very rare. So, Chad, thank you so much for making time out of your schedule here.
I got to catch up with Jordan.
Yeah, no, I knew you'd say yes. Once I told you Jordan was coming, of course you said yes, I want to be on this episode of How We Innovate. And Jordan, thank you so much. We know you're all over the place, getting ready to go to San Fran.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so great to have you back on campus and interacting with our current students and future innovators as well. So thanks to everybody out there. This is How We Innovate at Arizona State University. We'll see you next time. Go Devils. Woo.